Thank you, Bill. Thanks also to Eric, John, Dave, and Senator Sanders for their wonderful remarks. Thank you to the selection committee and the board for choosing me, and to the events committee for planning this terrific evening. And thank you to everyone who is here tonight. I consider it an enormous privilege to have known Bob Ball. He was dedicated to public service. Many here tonight share that dedication. The entire nation is fortunate to have so many talented, public-spirited people choose a career of public service. It is disgraceful that civil service is under such fierce and ongoing attack. In honor of Bob Ball, let's have a round of applause for today's civil servants in this room and elsewhere who are following in Bob's footsteps. I and a number of others here tonight were fortunate to know Bob Ball, as well as Bob Myers and Wilbur Cohen. They were all young men when Social Security was enacted in 1935. Wilbur and Bob Myers started their Social Security careers in 1934, the year before it was enacted into law. Bob Ball was a latecomer. He began in 1939. All three spent their adult lives literally until their dying days dedicated to protecting and improving Social Security. All three spoke to me of their mentors, Arthur Altman, Ed Whitty, and others. They referred to those who created Social Security as giants. Although many in the room may not realize it, all of us form an unbroken thread leading all the way back to President Roosevelt, Francis Perkins, Altman, Whitty, and the others. These founders had a bold vision, one that they passed on to Bob Ball, Myers, and Wilbur. The Bobs and Wilbur, in turn, passed the vision to those of us who knew and worked with them at the start of our careers. And we, in turn, worked to pass that vision on to younger colleagues today. So what was that vision? The founders recognized that security, whether physical or economic, is best achieved through cooperative, collective action. And the way we manifest and implement our united action is through our federal government. At the base of economic security is a good-paying job. To ensure at least a living wage and a reasonable workday and week, we need minimum wage and maximum hour laws and the right, the protected right, to collectively bargain. To be prepared for our chosen career paths, we must be educated. They recognized that even with an education and good-paying employment, we and our families are still not economically secure without wage insurance. Wages can be lost as the result of unemployment, death leaving dependents, short-term and long-term disability, and old age. And they recognize that undergirding all of that, people must be healthy. We must have guaranteed health care starting at birth. All of that was encompassed within the founders' vision of Social Security. However, over time, our definition of Social Security narrowed. Just Title II of the Social Security Act, wage insurance in the event of old age, long-term disability, or death, is what people today think of when they hear, read, or use the phrase Social Security. Founder Arthur Altman mused about the phrase 30 years after the program's enactment. In a 1965 speech at a banquet honoring his protege Wilbur Cohen, Altman said, quote, "The term Social Security captured the public imagination, not only in this country, but throughout the world. In the course of time, the term came to be used in other countries in an expansive sense as a synonym for the good life. However, gradually the term Social Security in this country, instead of being used in a more expansive sense, has been used in a more limited sense to refer only to the old age survivors and disability system. I, Arthur Altman said, consider this extremely unfortunate," close quote. But even today's narrowed, limited definition of Social Security has been too much for some. There have always been those who oppose Social Security. President Eisenhower described those opponents in a 1954 letter to his brother, in which he wrote, "There is a tiny splinter group that believes you can abolish Social Security. Their number is negligible and they are stupid," close quote. Those who oppose Social Security today, today's small splinter group, never come out and admit that they oppose Social Security. Rather, they try to convince the rest of us that the wealthiest nation in the world, at the wealthiest moment in its history, all of a sudden can no longer afford Social Security. A striking example is President George W. Bush. In his 2005 State of the Union address, he said, quote, "Social Security was a great moral success of the 20th century. The system, however, on its current path is headed toward bankruptcy." More recently, the 2016 Republican Party platform drew from the same playbook. The Social Security plank was entitled "Saving Social Security." The section claimed, quote, "Everyone knows that Social Security's current course will lead to a financial and social disaster. But as the following two graphs show," there we go. "Our Social Security system is unquestionably affordable. This first one shows that at the end of the 21st century, Social Security will cost as a percentage of GDP not much more than it costs today. The cost is basically a straight horizontal line." And the second slide shows that other industrialized countries spend considerably more today as a percentage of GDP than we will at the end of the century. The issue of whether to expand or cut Social Security is not a question of affordability. It's a question of values. Expanding both Social Security and Medicare is extremely wise policy. Both Social Security and Medicare have stood the test of time. Social Security is much more efficient, universal, secure, and fair in its distribution than any private sector counterpart is or could be. The same is true for Medicare. Social Security and Medicare together demonstrate the striking superiority of government-sponsored wage and health insurance over their private sector counterparts. Insurance is most efficient when it has as large a risk pool as possible. The only entity that can require universal mandatory participation is the federal government. Instead of high-paid CEOs, Social Security and Medicare are administered by government employees whose salaries are modest. With Social Security and Medicare, no one is seeking profits for shareholders. No one is spending money on advertisements to gain market share. It is for these reasons that Social Security and Medicare can spend so much on benefits and so little on administration, both in absolute percentage terms and in comparison to their private sector counterparts. And insurance is most secure when the entity providing the insurance can't go out of business and has the power to tax, when its assets are backed by the full faith and credit of the United States. Expanding Social Security and Medicare is what the founders intended. FDR described Social Security as, quote, "a cornerstone in a structure which is being built but is by no means complete." Bob Ball said and wrote that he and the other founders intended Medicare to be the first step toward Medicare for all. Expanding Social Security and Medicare is also the will of the people. Poll after poll reveals that the American people are overwhelmingly united on this subject. Tea Partiers agree with union members, Republicans with Democrats. All ages, races, genders agree. Overwhelmingly, the American people want to see these programs expanded, not cut. There's a clear reason why Americans overwhelmingly support these programs. They represent the best of American values. Embodied in the fundamental structure of Social Security is reward for hard work, prudent, responsible management, shared risk and responsibility, concern about family, community, and nation, and self-reliance and freedom. In 1953, President Eisenhower may have articulated best the relationship between Social Security and self-reliance. In advocating the expansion of Social Security, he stated, quote, "Retirement systems by which individuals contribute to their own security are but a reflection of the American heritage of sturdy self-reliance, which has made our country strong and kept it free. The self-reliance without which we would have had no Pilgrim Fathers, no hardship-defying pioneers, and no eagerness today to push to ever-widening horizons in every aspect of our national life. The Social Security program furnishes, on a national scale, the opportunity for our citizens through that same self-reliance to build the foundation for their security," unquote. In addition to self-reliance, Social Security frees us. An independent, guaranteed income provides the freedom to choose whether to live independently in old age. Before Social Security, Americans had no choice as they aged. They moved in with their adult children, or if that was not possible, they literally went to the poorhouse, an institution that existed in every state but New Mexico when Social Security was enacted. Before Social Security, people with disabilities and the survivors of a worker who died were left destitute, forced to beg on the streets for the bare necessities. Indeed, children who lost a parent often were sent away to live with other relatives or even to orphanages because their surviving parent could not afford to keep them. Today, Social Security replaces that lost income. It provides the freedom that keeps families together. These are values that unite us. Social Security and Medicare unite us. If the anticipated blue wave actually materializes in the upcoming election, it will be significant for Social Security, Medicare, and the other programs which are the Academy's focus. Representative John Larson has introduced Social Security expansion legislation, which has been co-sponsored by 172 members of the House of Representatives. If the House returns to Democratic control in the next Congress, Larson will chair the Social Security Subcommittee of the Ways and Means Committee. If that happens, he has already said that he will hold hearings on expanding Social Security. After hearings, there may be a vote in committee and on the House floor. That will put pressure on Republicans. If they vote against expanding Social Security and restoring it to actuarial balance, or if they propose an alternative that cuts benefits, they will likely be held accountable at the voting booth. They may feel they must go along. I believe it will not be long before we once more take steps towards the founders' vision. It may not be in the next Congress, but I believe it is coming. It is coming because it is profoundly wise policy and profoundly winning politics. There are not many issues with that powerful combination. The vision of increased economic security was the vision of Bob Ball and his mentors. It's the vision of those of us in the room who admired and learned from Bob Ball. It is the reclaimed vision of today's Democratic Party, which seeks to build on the cornerstone laid down by Franklin Roosevelt. Providing expertise to those who embrace the vision is why this Academy is so important and will become more important in the future. It's why I am so proud to have been on its organizing committee, a founding member, and on its first board of directors. It's why I am especially proud to receive today's award named in Bob's honor. Let's together Keep up the excellent and important work Bob envisioned when he formed the Academy's organizing committee. Thank you.